we want to spend a little bit of time looking at 2020 vision and how the Bible all comes together. This is not just a bunch of separate stories, separate parts that are put in there. There's a purpose to everything. And we're going through 10 steps of the Bible. We've looked at the first 2 steps. The first step is the beginning, dealing with that first part of Genesis there. And what is that about? The need for a Savior. And what was the beginning of? Everything. Then we looked at step number 2. What was step number 2? The Hebrew fathers. And that was the family of the Savior. And we were able to see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then Jacob having 12 sons, Joseph being maybe the most famous of those sons. We ended a couple weeks ago looking at the fact that Joseph was sold as a slave. And by the way, if you have not joined us for our Wednesday night service, I want to encourage you to be a part of that. Pastor is going through the book of Genesis and focusing on the life of Joseph. And what a great challenge that is. So join us on Wednesday nights if you haven't been a part of that yet. But Joseph finds himself in Egypt, sold by his brothers into slavery. And God is going to use him to save many, many people. In fact, to save his brothers' lives who sold him into slavery. And when Joseph reveals who he is to his brothers, his brother and his father come down to Egypt. And that's where we pick up in step number 3. Because in step number 3, we see the Exodus. The children of Israel have been in Egypt now for 400 years. And now God is going to take them out of Egypt. Pharaoh's heart has changed towards them. And when you read the book of Exodus, you see some of the things that he did. And so God uses a man by the name of Moses to go and to stand before Pharaoh and to say, let my people go. Pharaoh doesn't listen. So God has 10 plagues that he sends upon Egypt. Each one of these plagues dealing with one of the Egyptians' gods that they worshiped. And the plagues will go, the water turned to blood, a frog invasion, gnats and lice, flies, cattle disease, boils, hail and fire, locust, a darkness so thick that fire and lamps would not pierce it. And then after all of these, still, Pharaoh will not let the children of Israel go. And the last plague is the death of the firstborn. This is where God commands the children of Israel to take a lamb and sacrifice that lamb and to take the blood from that lamb and to put it over the doorpost and on the side. And when the death angel saw it, he would pass over the house. This is what the children of Israel still celebrate today as the Passover. This is what we celebrated last week because Jesus died during the Passover because he was the ultimate Passover lamb. And we see that at this time, after Pharaoh's own son is killed, he finally allows the children of Israel to leave Egypt. They leave Egypt and they head on their way. And as they do, they come to the Red Sea. When they get here, Pharaoh has changed his mind and all of Pharaoh's army follows after these Hebrews, these Jewish people, to bring them back. As they come and they stand there in front of the Red Sea, God performs an amazing miracle and parts the Red Sea so that the children of Israel walk across on dry ground. And when they finally get across, the Egyptians begin to come themselves. And at this time, God does not hold back the waters any longer, and they come crashing down on the Egyptian army, and they perish there in the Red Sea. God has now brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, but what he's going to do now is to try to get Egypt out of the children of Israel. As he leads them to Mount Sinai, and they leave Egypt to go to Mount Sinai, and here's where God is going to give Moses the 10 Commandments. A very familiar set of rules, I guess you could say. What are the 10 Commandments? No other gods before me. No idols, to not take the name of the Lord in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The first 4 dealing with man's relationship with God. The next 6 are going to deal with man's relationship with other men. And we see honor your father and mother. You shall not murder, not to commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't covet. All of these were the rules that God set down for his children of Israel to make them different. because as followers of God, we're supposed to be different. They spend time there receiving those 10 commandments, and we see some of the different sin that they fall into there. Then Moses leads the children of Israel to a place called Kadesh Barnea. As he gets to Kadesh Barnea, he is going to send 12 spies into the promised land to see what that promised land was really like. And they go into the land and they bring back the report, and they confirm what they were hoping. It's a beautiful place, like nothing you've ever seen before. But then they begin to describe the opposition. They say these guys are giants. In fact, the way they look and the way we are, we're just like grasshoppers compared to them. And the people begin to mourn. And they begin to cry out to Moses, "Why did you lead us here just to have us killed? We have no hope. Our children will die out here because of what you've done." It's amazing that after seeing God change Pharaoh's mind, wipe out one of the most powerful armies in that day and age, how quickly they forget. God is going to judge the children of Israel here, because of those people that were older, only 2 of them are going to go into the promised land. Joshua and Caleb, the 2 spies that brought back the report and said, "Hey, they're right. This is a large army. It's going to be very difficult, but don't ever forget, God is with us." And they will spend 40 years wandering around in the wilderness. You read about this, again, this is Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. You read about all of this going on. All because at Kadesh Barnea, they didn't have enough faith that if they would follow God, even though the opposition may be great, God is greater than their opposition. What a great truth for us today as we think of everything we're going through. God is greater than any problem that we have. And as we think of those steps, we see a family coming out to Egypt, then God bringing them back out. Now this family is much larger, 1 million to 3 million people. And our next step, we're going to see a new leader come, and they're finally going to go into the promised land.